Now that we've done an introduction to hypothesis tests, the next step would be forming hypotheses. What is a hypothesis, and how do you form them? We already know that in inference, we use a sample to draw a conclusion about a population. If the research question contains a claim about the population, we translate the claim into two related hypotheses. First, the null hypothesis, which I don't think we've seen yet, states the value of the parameter that we assume to be true about the population. The null hypothesis is abbreviated H with a little zero, sub-zero they call it. Null hypothesis is H sub-zero, a little zero at the bottom. On the other hand, the alternative hypothesis reflects the claim in the research question about the parameter. The alternative hypothesis says the parameter is greater than or less than or not equal to the value that we assume to be true in the null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis is abbreviated H with a little a for alternative. So alternative hypothesis, we write it almost looks the same, especially with that really small font up there in the blue that is written. But it's a little subscript of A for alternative hypothesis and a little subscript of 0 for null hypothesis. I think the 0 being this is the starting hypothesis. No time has passed. When time starts at 0, that's what our hypothesis is, but we might change it in the future. Anyway, that's kind of hard to wrap our mind around until we see some examples maybe. So below are some examples stating hypotheses from a research question. So the first question, just an example would be, is the average course load from community college students less than 12 semester hours? So there, the null hypothesis, H sub 0 or H subscript 0, would be the mean course load for community college students is the mean course load for community college students is equal to, I think I was reading below, equal to 12 semester hours. H with a little subscript A, the alternative hypothesis would be the mean course load for community college students is less than 12 semester hours. So it's like what's already believed to be true is your null hypothesis. So that's what I've heard growing up as a college student, that the average student has 12 semester hours, or 12 units every semester. That's the average. So that's the null hypothesis because that's what's kind of believed to be true right off the bat, and we're questioning that. The alternative hypothesis would be a new one. We're going to test if the old one's correct or not compared to the new one that we have. And the new one, the way they phrase this question here is it actually less than that? And I think now as time has gone on, I think it is less than 12. It might have been 12 or close to it in past decades, but I think recently it's more smaller. Anyway, another example, number 2, do the majority of community college students qualify for federal student loans? So the null hypothesis usually is not going to say the words less than or greater than. It's just going to be, just some statement. It is this is the mean, or this is, the proportion of community college students who qualify for federal student loan is 0.5, just half. And they use 0.5 because here they're asking about the majority. So the alternative hypothesis is asking about, well, maybe it's larger than half because majority means more than half. So I guess that means that the standard thought would be it's half. So we think maybe it's half, but then they're asking now, actually, is it the majority that actually qualifies for student loans? So you would phrase the null hypothesis in that situation, the proportion of community college students who qualify for federal student loans is greater than 0.5. Just greater than 0.5 is just another way to say the majority, because 0.5 is half and majority means more than half, that's all. When the research questions contain a claim that compares two populations, the null hypothesis states that the parameters are equal, which is equivalent to saying that there is no difference in parameter values. How about a third example here? In community college, do female students and male students have different mean GPAs? So there, it's like we're questioning, maybe the standard logic was male and female GPAs are pretty much the same. So that would be our null hypothesis. In community colleges, female and male students have the same mean GPAs. They're pretty much the same. But now they're asking, are they different? They don't say one's bigger than the other. So the alternative hypothesis you could phrase as, in community colleges, females and male students have different mean GPAs. You wouldn't say male's GPAs are larger than females or male GPA smaller than female. Just they didn't say anything about larger or smaller in this research question. So we're not going to make that statement in our alternative hypothesis also. Fourth example could be, are college athletes more likely than non-athletes to receive academic advising? So I guess more likely meaning greater than. But the null hypothesis, I guess, this is a question that's supposed to be like a new question, questioning something that's standard or has been believed to be true for a while. So since they're questioning, maybe one receives more than the other. I guess the standard thought was that it would be equal. So the null hypothesis: in colleges, the proportion of athletes who receive academic advising is equal to the proportion of non-athletes who receive academic advising. So I guess think about the research question and think about what is it questioning? It's questioning something that we might have believed to be true. So the alternative hypothesis is pretty much what they're asking in the question, some new thought. Instead of things being equal or things being standard, is there something larger than the other in this situation? In colleges, the proportion of athletes who receive academic advising is greater than the proportion of non-athletes who receive academic advising. That would be your alternative hypothesis, kind of what you're questioning. Is it more like this or is it more like that? So comment, here are some general observations about null and alternative hypothesis. Hopefully the null and our alternative hypotheses make more sense now that we've seen examples, but here's a few things to point out. First, both hypotheses are statements about the same population parameter or the same two population parameters. They're almost the same statement, except we're changing just the something to greater than. Instead of being equal, it's now something's greater than something, or yeah, or just something being like, what was it? The number of units that a student takes was 12. We thought it was equal to. Now we're saying maybe it's larger. Just almost the same, the same populations and kind of talking about the same numbers if you do state any numbers, but now you're changing equal to greater than or something like that. Another thing, the null hypothesis always contains an equal sign. And then the last thing about alternative hypotheses, the alternative hypothesis is always an inequality statement. It contains a less than or a greater than or a not equal to symbol. If you're not sure which one they're saying is greater than the other, just say they're not equal. Like the female GPA versus male GPA, they said they're not equal in the statement. We didn't know if they were trying to say which one was larger than the other, so we just said not equal to. In a statistical investigation, we determine the research question and thus the hypotheses before we collect the data. The process of forming hypotheses, collecting data, and using the data to draw a conclusion about a hypothesis is called hypothesis testing.